The artistic director and principal conductor of the Kirov Opera, Master Gergiev, has been called the theater's soul. Recognition of the Kirov extends beyond St. Petersburg, Russia, and this international reputation for excellence has been credited to him. He is also known to be a proponent of the great Russian sound. I want to know more about that and other things, and I'm pleased to have him at this table this evening. Welcome.
Thank you.
May I talk a little bit of politics before? Because this program is very interested in politics, and especially interested in Russia, among other places, and we have followed closely the elections. How do you feel about the elections and some sense of stability coming?
Well, I have to say I also felt interested in the results of elections.
Yes, I can imagine.
I was mostly in Russia. June, July, I spent much time in Russia because of festival which I run, White Nights Festival. And I was supporting openly Mr. Yeltsin.
Yes.
Not because I thought that everything what he was doing was ideal. There were mistakes and maybe even heavy mistakes, but I thought that now he could learn a lot about the first 5 years in the office, and maybe he can be more, precise and more helpful in order to stabilize, the life and economy, and also even culture. Culture is not last thing you want to see flourishing in Russia. So, and of course the results of elections altogether were good news for me and for the artists of my company.
Gorbachev really made a difference for artists.
Yes,
Glasnost and Perestroika.
Yes, he opened everything, Openness was a very, very important message, but a risky one.
Yes.
Because sometimes you open, so it's not only good what will go into this window, let's say, but also a lot of bad can move. And I think there were bad things about Soviet Union and the very hard control over the artistic policies of the best institutions. But I couldn't imagine 15 years ago some weak or bad ensembles or orchestras or opera or ballet companies coming, let's say, to New York, because it was very strictly watched, that there was the best of the best to introduce the Soviet culture. When some 5 years ago or 7 years ago, it was open for everyone, and some, let's say, cheap but not very good ensembles or even just individuals, they became sort of representatives of Soviet or Russian culture, and it became a bit chaotic. So it was good news, I repeat. Mr. Gorbachev brought a lot of new and fresh ideas. But
do you have a feeling that hopefully it's turned a corner in a sense that his election and a democratic election, no matter how much money he had and no matter how much control there was of television, but that it was a turning of a corner because the Russian people, for all the problems, felt like the alternative, felt like they couldn't turn back?
Yes, I think Gorbachev was the right man for the first 2-3 years, from 85 to 86 to 87. We all enjoyed tremendously his speeches and his promises and also his doings. And after that, I think there was a moment when he had to change the speed of his, let's say, move, because maybe he went too far and too fast. The country is very big. That means very difficult to manage, to lead.
11 time zones.
Yeah. And we have to, even now we have to look at this problem, I think. We still have to do it, or they have to do it, I may say. And I expect the next 2-3 years to be decisive, finally. Everybody was thinking 5-6 years ago that after the August coup was, let's say, stopped, and everybody was so ecstatic about now immediately Russia, Soviet Union becomes fantastically organized, rich, and people will be happy. It appeared to be very far from the truth, Very far from the truth.
You were born in Moscow.
Yes.
Was music in your blood?
Yes and no. I had no professionals in our family who could give me an example of professional career. At the same time, my mother and also my father were quite musical, and I'm Caucasian. My native country is called Ossetia. It's very, very close to Chechnya.
Yes.
So it's 20 kilometers from the border from Chechnya. And this is important fact of my life, that you call me Russian, but if you go and live even 2-3 weeks in Soviet Union or in Russia now, you see the differences between Russians and Ukrainians, or Russians and Chechens, or Chechens and Ossetians, Ossetians and Georgians, and so on. So there are cultural differences, there are different habits. National character is very, very different. And I'm coming from Ossetian family, and I had a very strong, I think, impulses from my father and from my mother, which finally was reflected in my musical life, although they were not musicians.
But it was the roots there.
Yes, yes. I think it's a very strong feeling that you belong to something, and you see how people live.
But you don't think of yourself then as being Russian?
Yes, I am let's say, a son of Russian musical culture, which is because of Tchaikovsky or Rachmaninoff or Scriabin and Mussorgsky and so on and so on, so on, is, very, very powerful tradition, very deep reservoir, I would say. So you can have a lot of great things to learn from and to look at while you are on this earth,
It must be wonderful, though. You couldn't be in a city that has more tradition than St. Petersburg.
I cannot disagree. Yeah.
As a source of culture, from art to music, I mean, Verdi and everybody would come to St. Petersburg.
Berlioz, Mahler, Debussy, Schoenberg.
All of them.
Yeah, Wagner, yes, Strauss, both Strausses, in fact. I have to be honest, it's a great chance, it's a very big luck, let's say, that me, being 19 years old, I found myself in Leningrad then, trying to become a student of conductors, let's say, faculty, of Leningrad Conservatory. The conservatory where Prokofiev or Tchaikovsky or Shostakovich, they, let's say, earned their education and even their reputation being still the students of Leningrad or Petersburg Conservatory, last century or the beginning of this century. So it was for me most, let's say, revolutionary moment of my life, because I remember this huge change coming from the small city in the Caucasus, which is called Vladikavkaz, capital of Ossetia. I didn't feel it was small before I found myself in Leningrad. I didn't feel that the orchestra, symphonic orchestra, can be such an incredible instrument until I heard live the concerts of Evgeny Mravinsky. I couldn't even imagine that acoustic can be so important and beautiful, so supportive of music, before I entered for the first time into Leningrad Philharmonic, now Petersburg Philharmonic Hall. For me, maybe the best hall in the world. It's certainly one of 3 best halls for any musician who experienced.
What is it about a place like that? I mean, is Carnegie Hall in the same league?
I would say yes, and the reputation of Carnegie Hall as a place where all great living musicians really want to come and speak to the, let's say, music lovers with their own languages, from their own talent and abilities, is maybe even higher, because New York in the 20th century, or the last century, who opened Carnegie Hall? Tchaikovsky.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So, but it's enough to say that for the first time, the Pathétique, the symphony, such an important symphony of the international repertoire, was performed for the first time in the Petersburg Philharmonic Hall, and so on, so on. Many things happened there. Take Wagner, take Berlioz, take Strauss, take all great conductors of the last century, practically, beginning of 20th century. It was a very big and very strong capital for music, literature, arts, painters, poets. Take Pushkin, or take Dostoevsky, Tolstoy for the certain period of his life, and, well, Gogol, of course. Because it was born as a piece of art. It was born as an idea. Peter the Great, the most powerful, maybe the brightest of Russian tsars, and he was so gifted, so able to do something what was his vision, immediately to make it happen.
Yeah.
And the whole city was built in, 2-3